Harper Lane was mocked the moment she stepped into the Orion Aerospace Experience Center. Called a gift shop tourist, sneered at by defense heirs, laughed off as a working-class dreamer who dared to touch their simulators. They set her up to fail in the hardest EVA module, betting she'd crash in zero gravity. Nobody knew. The quiet woman in worn sneakers was a former NASA EVA operations officer and Orion's secret technical lead, until she outsmarted their system in 28. 4 seconds silenced the hall and buried their arrogance in Houston's high-tech dust. The Orion Aerospace Experience Center in Houston, Texas, gleamed like a futuristic cathedral. Its sleek glass domes and titanium-clad halls, a private playground for VIP sponsors, defense industry heirs and rich kids chasing astronaut fantasies with the casual arrogance of those who buy their way into orbit. The air hummed with the whir of SpaceX Dragon simulators, Boeing Starliner modules and ISS control units, the scent of polished metal and ambition thick in the recycled air. Harper Lane, a solitary figure in a plain white t-shirt, faded jeans, and worn sneakers with frayed soles, stepped into this high-tech fortress, her canvas backpack hanging tiredly on one shoulder, her lack of entourage a silent rebellion against the center's exclusivity. The facility, with its holographic displays, zero-gravity chambers, and banks of glowing consoles, was a shrine for the privileged, where spaceflight simulation was less about skill than status. At the check-in desk, a security officer in a crisp uniform blocked her path, his voice a venomous snap that cut through the hum of machinery. Experience sessions are for VIPs or senior engineers only. The gift shop's in the back, probably more your range, he sneered, his badge glinting as he waved her toward a side corridor. Harper's gaze, calm and unyielding, met his without a word, her silence, a wall that only fueled his arrogance. She stepped forward, her sneakers scuffing the polished floor, the audience's blood boiling at the vicious public dismissal that marked her as an intruder in their elite domain. The simulator bays loomed ahead, their glowing screens, a gateway to a world that mocked her presence. The livestream cameras set up for the center's promotional feed, zooming in on her faded jeans, framing them as evidence of her unworthiness. The crowd, a mix of defense contractor scions, corporate thrill-seekers, and tech prodigies, sized her up with sneers, their whispers a mocking rhythm that echoed across the sterile halls. Harper's stride, deliberate and unyielding, carried her toward the bays, but her lack of sponsor logos or pedigree made her invisible to the elite who ruled Orion. Harper stood by the center's mission briefing room, her eyes scanning a holographic display of ISS schematics, when a group of aerospace venture capitalists, their tailored suits and platinum smartwatches exuding predatory wealth, swarmed her, their laughter a venomous shroud that drowned out the hum of projectors. A sleek-haired capitalist with a gold-plated pen stepped forward, his voice a sneering bellow that echoed across the sterile room. "Look at this, some dock worker thinking she can decode our schematics," he mocked, brandishing his investor tablet like a royal scepter. That t-shirt's so plain it's screaming, "Laborer," and those sneakers. They're an insult to Orion's ambition. This is a hub for titans where we fund the future, not where you come to gape with your ratty backpack. You're fouling our vision just by standing here looking like you've stumbled in from a loading bay. Why don't you limp back to whatever slum you call home before you waste our tech with your clueless stare? The capitalists roared, some tossing digital keycards at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage that reverberated through the briefing room. A biotech mogul in a silk tie smirked his nod, fueling their cruelty, as the live stream cameras zoomed in on Harper's faded jeans, framing them as proof of her inadequacy. Harper studied the schematics, her posture unyielding, her face an unreadable mask, her silence a shield against their venom, but the weight of their scorn pressed like a physical force, the audience's rage surging at the orchestrated public shaming that targeted her intellectual curiosity and socioeconomic status. The humiliation began at the check-in desk, where Harper stood under the harsh glow of LED panels, the security officer's disdain a palpable force that sought to banish her from their sacred facility. A defense contractor's golden boy, his tailored flight jacket adorned with corporate patches, clapped her shoulder with a condescension that dripped like oil, his voice carrying over the crowd's murmurs. "What are we expecting here?" "Careful, sweetie. You might get motion sickness just sitting in a simulator," he sneered, his smirk. A blade that cut through the hum of consoles, his gesture toward the simulator bays, a dismissal as sharp as a guillotine. The VIPs nearby erupted in laughter, their smartphones flashing as they recorded their jeers, a storm that humiliated Harper in front of the arriving elite hashtags, #GiftShopTourist trending within minutes. The golden boy pressed on his eyes, raking over her frayed sneakers. Look at her straight out of a factory line. Thought Orion was for astronauts, not assembly line dreamers. The crowd's laughter swelled a tech heiress in a silk scarf, tossing a visitor's wristband at Harper's feet, amplifying the moment to the live stream. Harper stood motionless, her backpack slung low, her face an unreadable mask, her silence a coiled spring that only fueled their arrogance, the audience's rage boiling over at the vicious public execution of her dignity that marked her as an outcast in their futuristic shrine. Approaching the center's telemetry console area, Harper paused to observe the data streams flickering across the screens, only to be ambushed by a clique of space tourism influencers, their neon flight jackets and diamond-encrusted earpieces radiating social media clout, their laughter a barbed wire net that stifled the console's ambient buzz. A wiry influencer with a holographic badge swaggered forward, his voice a mocking lilt that carried over the hum of servers. "What's this, a temp worker thinking she can read our telemetry?" he sneered, waving his live-streaming drone like a conductor's baton. "Those jeans are so worn they're screaming, 'Nobody!' And that backpack. It's an insult to Orion's glamour. This is a stage for stars where we broadcast the cosmos, not where you come to loiter with your sad little sneakers. You're ruining our brand just by standing here looking like you've wandered in from a bus depot. Why don't you bolt back to your dead-end job before you tank our feed with your drab look?" The influencers cackled, some flicking virtual tokens at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the telemetry area. A crypto heiress in a metallic jumpsuit smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty, as the cameras panned to Harper's plain t-shirt, framing it as evidence of her failure. Harper analyzed the data streams, her posture rigid, her face impassive, her silence a fortress against their venom, the audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her technical engagement and worth. As Harper approached the simulator bay where SpaceX Dragon modules gleamed under holographic displays, her quiet presence drew a venomous onslaught from Candace Miller, daughter of Orion's vice president, her tailored jumpsuit and diamond-studded smartwatch, a stark contrast to Harper's plain t-shirt. Candace tilted her chin, her voice a sneering lilt that silenced the bay's ambient hum. "It's adorable how the working-class dreams of becoming astronauts," she scoffed, strutting forward with her entourage, her words cutting through the crowd's murmurs like a laser. "That backpack's so ratty it's screaming, 'Janitor!' And those sneakers. They're an insult to Orion's prestige. This is a center for pioneers, where we conquer the stars, not where you come to play pretend with your thrift store rags. Honestly, it's almost pathetic you thought you could stand among us. Why don't you scuttle back to whatever warehouse you call home before you embarrass yourself further?" The tech prodigies cackled their cheers, a storm that humiliated Harper in front of the engineers, some tossing used access cards at her feet, their hashtags, #wannabe, astronauts surging. Candace's smirk was a guillotine, her voice a whip that lashed at Harper's ambition, the cameras capturing her faded jeans, framing them as proof of her inadequacy. Harper stood by the bay, her hands steady, her face impassive, her silence louder than their jeers, the audience's fury erupting at the brazen public assault that aimed to crush her spirit. Venturing toward the center's virtual reality training lab, Harper stopped to inspect a VR headset calibration panel, only to be confronted by a group of defense tech consultants, their crisp blazers and encrypted smart glasses exuding military precision, their laughter a venomous storm that drowned out the lab's digital hum. A stern consultant with a silver cufflink stepped forward, his voice a sneering roar that reverberated across the lab's consoles. "Behold a nobody thinking she can fiddle with our VR tech," he mocked, clutching his security tablet like a general's orders. "That t-shirt's so faded it's screaming vagrant. And those sneakers, they're an insult to Orion's precision. This is a lab for strategists where we conquer orbits, not where you come to meddle with your sad little backpack. You're contaminating our systems just by standing here looking like you've stumbled in from a junkyard. Why don't you crawl back to whatever hole you call home before you break our gear with your ignorant hands?" The consultants roared some tossing spare VR sensors at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the lab. A drone magnate in a tailored vest smirked his nod, fueling their cruelty, as the cameras zoomed in on Harper's frayed soles, framing them as proof of her inadequacy. Harper examined the panel, her posture unyielding, her face, a mask of stone, her silence, a defiance that went unnoticed. The audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her technical curiosity and worth. In the observation deck where VIP sponsors preened for the cameras, Harper's presence drew a vicious barrage from a group of aerospace startup founders, their bespoke suits and gold cufflinks exuding entrepreneurial arrogance. A lean founder with a platinum smartwatch stepped forward, his voice a sneering bellow that carried over the crowd's murmurs. "What's this, a factory worker thinking she can ogle our simulators?" he mocked, waving his investor portfolio like a scepter. "That t-shirt's so plain it's screaming nobody. And those jeans? They're an insult to Orion's innovation. This is a center for visionaries where we shape the cosmos, not where you come to gawk with your sad little backpack. You're lowering our standard just by standing here looking like you've wandered in from a scrapyard. Why don't you take your pathetic act back to the ground before you ruin our deck with your ignorant stare?" The sponsors roared their cheers, a tidal wave, some flicking digital access tokens at her feet. Their hashtags has zero gravity, zero trending alongside hashtag gift shop tourist. The founder's smirk was a blade, his voice a whip that lashed at Harper's curiosity, the camera zooming in on her frayed sneakers, framing them as evidence of her failure. Harper observed the deck, her posture rigid, her face a mask of stone, her silence a fortress against their venom, the audience's rage boiling over at the coordinated public assault that targeted her interest and worth. Pausing near the center's astronaut gear showcase, Harper studied a display of EVA suits, her eyes tracing the intricate life support systems, when a group of corporate space investors, their silk ties and gold-plated pens radiating financial dominance, closed in their laughter, a venomous wave that silenced the showcase's hum. A grizzled investor, with a ruby-encrusted ring, stepped forward, his voice a sneering bellow that echoed across the glass cases. "Look at this, a drifter thinking she can admire our suits," he mocked, waving his investment prospectus like a royal decree. "Those jeans are so tattered, they're screaming beggar, and that t-shirt, it's an insult to Orion's legacy. This is a showcase for visionaries where we bankroll the stars, not where you come to gape with your sad little sneakers. You're polluting our exhibit just by breathing our air, darling. Why don't you slink back to whatever trailer you call home before you tarnish our suits with your grubby gaze?" The investors roared some tossing promotional pins at her feet, their taunts, a relentless barrage that reverberated through the showcase. A satellite tycoon in a velvet blazer smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty as the cameras zoomed in on Harper's canvas backpack, framing it as proof of her failure. Harper studied the suits, her posture rigid, her face impassive, her silence a shield against their venom, the audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her interest in gear and worth. The organizers, sensing an opportunity for cruel entertainment, orchestrated their pièce de résistance, offering Harper a chance to try the EVA Extravehicular Activity Simulator, the hardest module designed to break even seasoned test pilots with its zero-gravity emulation and multiple system failures. Candace, orchestrating the spectacle, stepped forward with a syrupy tone that hid venom, her voice carrying over the bay's buzz. "Why don't we give her a shot at the EVA module? Let's see the tourist handle that," she sneered, gesturing to the module with a mock bow. "Those sneakers are so worn they're screaming failure. And that t-shirt, it's an insult to Orion's rigor. This is a center for heroes where we master the void, not where you come to stumble with your sad little dreams. You're lucky we're even letting you near a module go back to cleaning floors before you crash our legacy." The crowd roared, their phones raised to film their laughter, a storm that humiliated Harper in front of the engineers' hashtags, our space crash trending alongside #wannabe astronaut. A spectator shouted, "Please film this for me. I want to watch the working class dreamer eat vacuum." The cameras captured Harper's hands adjusting her backpack, her face a mask of stone, her silence louder than their jeers, the audience's fury erupting at the orchestrated public sabotage that aimed to crush her spirit. Exiting the simulator bay after being mocked, Harper headed toward the center's lounge area to retrieve her water bottle, only to be waylaid by a group of elite aerospace journalists, their press badges and designer notepads exuding intellectual superiority. Their laughter, a venomous torrent that drowned out the lounge's ambient chatter. A silver-haired journalist with a gold-plated pen stepped forward, his voice a sneering lilt that carried over the clink of coffee cups. "What's this, a reject thinking she can linger in our lounge?" he mocked, waving his press tablet like a scepter. "That backpack's so worn it's screaming, 'Failure!' And those jeans, they're an insult to Orion's prestige. This is a hub for chroniclers where we document legends, not where you come to sulk with your sad little bottle. You're tarnishing our story just by standing here looking like you've wandered in from a scrap heap. Why don't you vanish back to whatever dump you call home before you ruin our coverage with your pathetic presence?" The journalist roared, some tossing crumpled press passes at her feet, their taunts a relentless barrage that echoed through the lounge. A media exec in a silk suit smirked her nod, fueling their cruelty as the camera zoomed in on Harper's plain t-shirt, framing it as proof of her defeat. Harper retrieved her bottle, her movements deliberate, her face a mask of stone, her silence a fortress against their venom, the audience's fury erupting at the coordinated public assault that targeted her brief respite in worth. The humiliation reached its zenith as Harper entered the EVA module, the organizers ensuring her downfall by selecting the Hurricane Difficulty ISS emergency repairs with a 5-minute window to stabilize a spiraling catastrophe, a scenario no rich kid had survived past 3 minutes. The crowd, sensing blood, erupted in mock applause, Candace shouting, "She'll black out before she even orients." As Harper strapped into the zero-gravity harness, the module's screens flashing warnings of imminent failure. The simulator kicked into gear, its systems programmed to overwhelm with cascading errors, oxygen leaks, thruster malfunctions, and a tumbling station. The observation deck roared with laughter, a sponsor yelling, "She's gonna puke," in zero-G as Harper navigated the chaos, the harness jerking under simulated turbulence. The timing screen ticked down mercilessly, the crowd's jeers a tidal wave, their smartphones live streaming the spectacle hashtags had EVA epic fail surging. The lead engineer leaned into the mic, his voice booming. Back to the gift shop. Missy. The cameras captured Harper's hands gripping the controls, her t-shirt taut with effort, her face impassive. Her silence a coiled spring, the audience's fury erupting at the orchestrated public sabotage that aimed to crush her dream. Harper didn't flinch. She stepped into the module quiet, no bravado, no live streams, just a subtle adjustment of her gloves, muscle memory, not vanity. The timer started and the hurricane scenario unleashed its fury. ISS emergency repairs, a 5-minute window to stabilize a catastrophe. Harper's hands danced across the controls, her movements fluid, her eyes locked on the screens with a focus that silenced the crowd's jeers. In 4 seconds, she completed the mission, so precise, so swift. The simulator's system glitched falsely, reading her success as a system error. A NASA engineer stared at the screen, slack-jawed, his voice trembling. "Impossible. That's ISS Emergency Protocol version 6. It hasn't even been made public yet." The observation deck froze, the crowd's laughter dying, their smartphones lowering their hashtags, space crash buried under whispers of disbelief. Harper's 28. 4-second triumph in the EVA module left the Orion Center's hall in stunned silence. Her plain t-shirt, now a radiant emblem of her mastery. The simulator bay transformed into a sacred arena where her legend was forged. A veteran astronaut whose ISS missions had inspired generations stepped forward from the VIP stands. His presence a thunderclap that silenced the crowd's gasps, his voice a resonant proclamation that shattered the remnants of Candace's scorn. "Harper Lane, your flawless execution of Protocol 6 is a testament to unmatched skill, a beacon for every astronaut," he declared, his eyes fixed on her frayed sneakers, now symbols of her dominion. "The Astronaut Hall of Fame will induct you as an honorary member for your contributions to spaceflight." The cameras swept across Harper's unflinching gaze, her faded jeans a badge of her victory, her silence a defiant rebuke to the sabotage that had sought to erase her. The audience's satisfaction surged, their rage at the initial cruelty transformed into awe at the astronaut's tribute, each word a lash against the antagonist's pride. Candace Miller, her smartwatch trembling, stood frozen, her corporate empire crumbling, as social media erupted with #OrbitQueen, drowning her #wannabe astronaut hashtags. The press, their pens a blur, framed Harper as the silent commander, her intellect a supernova that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the weight of her triumph and their disgrace. The golden boy who'd mocked her stood trembling, his flight jacket a relic of his failure, his influence erased by Harper's brilliance. The simulator bay framed her victory, each induction a testament to her enduring dignity. The astronauts' pledge to guest lecture at Harper's program sealed the antagonist's humiliation. Their legacy reduced to a footnote, the audience's hearts pounding with pride at her ascent. The truth unfolded like a supernova as Harper Lane's shadow loomed over the center, her name a legend whispered in NASA's halls. She was a former EVA operations officer architect of 3 ISS critical rescue missions, a figure who'd saved lives in orbit but retired for personal reasons, now quietly leading Orion's Strategic Technical Division, unrecognized by the crowd who saw only her worn sneakers. Harper stepped out of the module unhurried, removing her gloves with deliberate precision, her silence a force that suffocated the hall. She faced Candace, her eyes locking onto the heiress's trembling frame, her voice cool as liquid nitrogen. Dream of being an astronaut number. I just don't want morons like you touching life support systems in orbit. The crowd gasped, the cameras capturing every second, the audience's satisfaction soaring as Candace's face collapsed, her smartwatch trembling, her corporate empire crumbling under the weight of her shame. To the golden boy, Harper's gaze was a blade, her verdict final. Stick to your trust fund. Space doesn't need your motion sickness. Emerging from the module, Harper stood as a titan in the Orion Center, her worn sneakers now emblems of unassailable authority, the hall a monument to her genius. A leading spaceflight safety expert, whose protocols had saved countless missions, stepped forward from the engineering team, her presence a storm that silenced the crowd's murmurs, her voice a resonant decree that obliterated the last echoes of the golden boy's mockery. Harper Lane, your 28.4-second mastery is a new benchmark for EVA safety, a legacy that will protect astronauts. She declared, her eyes locked on Harper's t-shirt, now a mantle of triumph. The International Space Safety Consortium will dedicate an award in your name to honor exceptional operators. The cameras captured Harper's serene expression, her canvas backpack a relic of her victory, her silence a relentless assault on the cruelty that had sought to diminish her. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the initial taunts transformed into reverence at the expert's pledge, each word a guillotine slicing through the antagonist's arrogance. The startup founders who'd sneered stood trembling, their cufflinks dull, their zero gravity zero hashtags buried under orbit queen trends that dominated global feeds. The press, their headlines blazing, framed Harper as the silent commander, her intellect a radiant force that outshone their betrayal. The air thick with the weight of her triumph and their disgrace. The tech prodigies who'd mocked her sat in stunned silence, their clout erased by Harper's brilliance. The hall's consoles framed her victory, each award a testament to her enduring dignity. The experts' commitment to integrate Harper's protocols into global training sealed the antagonist's humiliation, their legacy reduced to ash, the audience's hearts swelling with pride at her coronation. The sponsors who tossed tokens stood silent, their cufflinks relics of their failure, their hashtags zero gravity zero buried under orbit queen trends. Before the press, Harper revealed a dossier of Orion's safety oversights, her voice unwavering. This center will train astronauts, not egos. Orion's board, stunned by her performance, invited her to the stage, announcing Harper Lane is hereby appointed head of the astronaut simulation program. Every individual wishing to operate our systems will require her approval. Standing resolute on the stage, Harper's presence commanded the Orion Center, her faded jeans a testament to her unyielding resolve, the simulator bay, a shrine to her supremacy. A distinguished aerospace historian whose works had chronicled humanity's reach for the stars emerged from the press corps, his presence a thunderclap that silenced the hall, his voice a resonant decree that shattered the last vestiges of the founder's scorn. Harper Lane, your EVA triumph is a chapter in spaceflight's saga, a testament to the unsung who conquer the void, he declared, his eyes fixed on her backpack, now a sacred relic of her victory. The Space History Institute will dedicate a permanent exhibit to your ISS missions. The cameras swept across Harper's unflinching gaze, her sneakers now emblems of her triumph, her silence a defiant rebuke to the sabotage that had sought to break her. The audience's satisfaction surged their rage at the initial cruelty transformed into awe at the historian's pledge, each word a lash against the antagonist's pride. The venture capitalists who'd mocked her stood trembling, their smartwatches irrelevant, their #gift shop tourist hashtags buried under #orbit queen trends that dominated global feeds. The press, their reports blazing, framed Harper as the silent commander, her intellect a radiant force that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the weight of her triumph and their disgrace. The organizers who'd set her up sat in stunned silence, their clout erased by Harper's brilliance. The hall's holographic displays framed her victory, each exhibit a testament to her enduring dignity. The historians' vow to publish Harper's story in a definitive volume sealed the antagonist's humiliation. Their legacy reduced to a cautionary tale, the audience's hearts pounding with pride at her ascent. The appointment was signed on the spot. Candace and her entourage left speechless, their VIP status powerless against Harper's command. Commanding the Orion Center's stage, Harper's silence was a force that reshaped the hall, her plain t-shirt, a radiant banner of her dominion, the simulator bay, a cathedral of her triumph. A global space education advocate whose programs had inspired millions stepped forward from the audience. Her presence, a storm that silenced the hall. Her voice, a resonant decree that obliterated the last echoes of the prodigy's scorn. Harper Lane, you're 28. 4-second mastery is a beacon for every dreamer reaching for the stars. She declared, her eyes fixed on her genes, now a testament to her victory. The International Space Education Alliance will establish a scholarship in your name to train future astronauts. The cameras captured Harper's serene expression, her backpack a relic of her triumph, her silence a relentless assault on the cruelty that had sought to diminish her. The audience's satisfaction soared, their fury at the initial taunts transformed into reverence at the advocate's pledge, each word a guillotine slicing through the antagonist's arrogance. The defense consultants who'd mocked her stood trembling, their smart glasses relics of their failure, their space crash hashtags buried under orbit queen trends that swept social media. The press, their headlines blazing, framed Harper as the silent commander, her intellect, a radiant force that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the weight of her triumph and their disgrace. The investors who'd tossed pins sat in stunned silence, their clout erased by Harper's brilliance. The hall's consoles framed her victory, each scholarship a testament to her enduring dignity. The advocates' commitment to fund Harper's training hub sealed the antagonist's humiliation, their legacy reduced to ash, the audience's hearts swelling with pride at her coronation. The media erupted their footage of Harper's 28.4-second triumph going viral within hours, the audience's hearts pounding with pride at her surgical vengeance. The fallout was cataclysmic, Orion's culture of elitism shattered under Harper's iron will. She didn't merely reclaim the module, she transformed the center into a merit-based training hub for aspiring astronauts, prioritizing skill over wealth, accessible to those with grit, not bank accounts. The rich kids who'd mocked her were blacklisted, their access to simulators revoked, their social media accounts drowned in condemnation, their #EVA fail hashtags replaced by #OrbitQueen. Candace's humiliation became a national scandal. Her family's influence, a fading echo, her jumpsuit, a relic of her disgrace. The organizers' careers were obliterated, their names erased from aerospace circles, their patches forgotten artifacts. The press uncovered Harper's past, a prodigy who'd mastered EVA protocols under NASA's harshest conditions. Her brilliance honed through years of sacrifice after personal loss, her anonymity, a choice to honor the mission over fame. They called her the silent commander, her t-shirt and jeans now symbols of untouchable authority. Other centers sent her invitations begging for partnerships, but she declined, her silence as powerful as her module's controls. As Harper prepared to leave the Orion Center, a crowd of aspiring astronauts, engineers, and media gathered under Houston's starlit sky, their eyes wide with awe, their chants of Orbit Queen echoing through the night. A legendary mission control director whose leadership had guided Apollo and shuttle missions stepped forward from the throng, his presence a final blow to the antagonist's pride, his voice a resonant proclamation that silenced the city's hum. Harper Lane, your EVA mastery is a triumph of human ingenuity, a legacy that will guide astronauts for generations, he declared, his eyes fixed on her t-shirt, now a symbol of her triumph. The Mission Control Legacy Foundation will name its highest honor after you, celebrating excellence in space operations. The cameras followed Harper's serene silhouette, her genes a relic of her victory, her silence a legend that would outlive the center. The audience's satisfaction surged, their rage at the initial cruelty transformed into reverence at the director's pledge, each word a lash against the antagonist's pride. The aerospace journalists who'd tossed passes stood trembling. Their notepads irrelevant, their hashtag EVA epic fail hashtags buried under hashtag Orbit Queen trends that dominated global feeds. The press, their headlines blazing, framed Harper as the silent commander, her intellect a radiant force that outshone their betrayal, the air thick with the weight of her triumph and their disgrace. The audience who jeered her were left to grapple with their shame, their status erased, their clout a fading echo. Harper's victory wasn't just a title, it was a reckoning etched into Orion's history, a reminder that the simplest woman could wield the deadliest skill, the audience's hearts pounding with pride. Orion's transformation was seismic, its simulator bays now a beacon for dreamers who'd been denied the stars. Harper's program trained astronauts with the precision of her ISS missions, her instructors handpicked for expertise, their respect for her absolute, their eyes on the consoles where she'd outsmarted the system. The center's modules, once toys for the rich, now served the determined, the media documenting every session as a testament to her vision. The corporate sponsors who'd scoffed were ostracized, their invitations to elite events revoked, their influence meaningless against Harper's reach. The founders who'd mocked her faced a social media storm, their accounts suspended, their clout buried under Orbit Queen trends. Harper's closing statement, delivered to a global audience, echoed like a thruster's roar, "I didn't come here for applause. I came to remind you whose systems keep you alive in orbit." The press framed her as a legend. Her 28.4-second triumph, a symbol of justice, her program a revolution that redefined spaceflight training. The audience's satisfaction soared, their rage at the initial cruelty transformed into reverence for her triumph, each word a testament to her enduring dignity. The Houston skyline, once a backdrop for privilege, now framed her empire, where Harper's victory stood as an unassailable truth. Harper didn't reclaim that module for applause. She did it because silence speaks louder than arrogance. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And remember, next time you belittle a quiet woman in worn-out sneakers, she might be the one who keeps you breathing in orbit.